Hello, Ben. This is your friend Eric, and I'm going to play for you a story recorded a long time ago in a house far, far away. It's a Darth and Joe story, and it includes Doctor who is a Time Lord, his sidekick Sally, and also a Gorgant, a friend of theirs named Trithy. A Gorgant is a giant ant. So here is the story, but I'm first going to start with a little song. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day in this neighborly wood. You be mine, could you be mine? I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you. I've always wanted to live with a Galoomp. It's true, so let's make the most of this beauteous day. If you be my neighbor, you might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Won't you be? Please won't you be? Please won't you be my neighbor? Hey, somebody's at the door. Just a second.
Well, hello, Eric.
Oh, hello. Hey, it's the milkman. What have you got for me today?
Well, I brought some milk.
Can you sing a song about that?
Why, sure. Here's a little song. Goes something like this. Well, milk doesn't come from vegetables. Milk doesn't come from plants. Milk doesn't come from the ocean. And you can't get milk from an ant. No, you can't get milk from an ant.
Well, that was a very nice song.
And it's true. It would take an awful lot of ants to fill up this gallon of milk.
Well, thank you very much. You've got to be going now, right?
That's right. I've got to be making my rounds, delivering milk to all the people out here in Dairyland. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Bye.
Well, that was the milkman. There are many wonderful people in our neighborhood. There's somebody else at the door. Let's see who that is. It's a monster! Look out! He's got my leg! He's playing the melodica and not even very well. Take that! I've got to get one. I don't have a lightsaber. Quick! Darth! Thank goodness you're here just in the nick of time. Fight him off! Joe! Get out your lightsabers! The monster he's getting back. He's back. Back out that way. Back with you. Back. He's running away. Wow, thanks. Good thing Darth and Joe showed up just in the nick of time, because that monster was getting out of control. He was wrecking the downstairs here at Grandma's house. There are books and games and puzzles all over the floor. It's going to take me hours to clean up. Well, thanks for coming by, Darth and Joe. Oh, you're welcome. No problem. All right. Well, are you off to have an adventure? Yeah. Okay, well, I'm just going to tell Ben about that skiing adventure that you had a little while ago. That's a good one. Oh, thanks, Darth. Okay, Darth and Joe, while they're going off to have another adventure on some other planet, I'm going to tell you about something that happened to them that they were just telling. A truly amazing adventure when they were being trained, as you know, to be Jedi warriors. They were off a Jedi warrior training school, which on the Jedi warrior training school planet, and they were having a vacation because, you know, you can't stay at school forever. Every once in a while you need a vacation just to relax and have fun. So they decided to go skiing. And skiing is this game where you stand on two flat sticks and you strap your feet on them and you slide down a hill covered with snow. And so there's no better place, well, very few better places to go skiing than the mountains of planet Nebulok. So Darth and Joe took off, and their friend Trithy decided to come with them to go skiing on Nebulok. And so they took the space shuttle over to Nebulok, and it was a beautiful day for skiing, because the amazing thing about the snow on Nebulok is that it snows in warm weather, because the snow is not made from water, so it can get warm out, but the snow remains, so there's skiing all year round on Nebulok. That's why it's a very popular place for tourists to come to go skiing. So Darth and Joe and Trithy went up to the ski lodge on top of this tall mountain to go skiing. And where you rent the skis, their skis had jets on the back of them. So not only would they slide down the hill on these skis, but they were jet powered, so they could slide down super fast on these things. And Darth and Joe got on the skis. Trithy had a little more trouble because Trithy has 6 legs, and he was having trouble just balancing on 2 skis. So he decided he was going to go back to the ski lodge and get 4 more skis, so every one of his legs could have a ski. That way, if he fell over, he could always have another leg to put out to catch himself, so he could keep sliding down the hill of the mountain. And so Darth and Joe decided they would take off first. Trithy will join up with them later. So they aimed They were at the top of the mountain. They saw the course. It was about 500 miles long, but with these jet packs on the back of their skis, it would only take them about 4.5 minutes to get to the bottom. 4 minutes flat if they were pretty fast. And these were plutonium-powered jet packs on the back of the skis, so they were pretty fast skis. So Darth and Joe started the engines and started skiing down the hill. And they were passing the other skiers because they were a lot faster because, of course, they had plutonium jet-powered ski packs, skis. They were sliding down the hill when suddenly a hole started opening up in front of them, and there was nothing they could do. They couldn't get out of the way. They fell into the hole. Ah! It was a hole that opened right in the middle of the ground in the snow, and they were falling and falling and falling. Luckily, they were on skis, and so when they landed, they just kept skiing. But they were in some sort of giant cavern, and they stopped, turned off the jetpacks, and Darth said, "Wow, this is a huge cave," and it just opened up out of nowhere. What do you think happened? And Joe said, "I don't know, but look, there are animals and people and things keep falling into the hole." And it was true. They looked up, and all sorts of things were falling into the hole and going thud when they landed. It wasn't so deep that anyone got hurt when they landed, but it was a hole that was going to be very hard for anybody who didn't have a ring of transportation to get out of again. And so there were all sorts of animals and people who happened just to be sliding down the hill when all of a sudden this hole opened up and they started falling into this hole. Well, what caused the hole? I don't know. Darth and Joe, they didn't know what caused the hole because the hole wasn't there when they started skiing. It opened up right when they were skiing down the slope. And suddenly, they started asking around, does anybody know where this hole came from or whose hole this is? And, they asked the little bunny rabbit. Of course, bunny rabbit didn't speak English, so it didn't know how to answer. But they asked the other people, and nobody knew where the hole came from or why, except for this small man with ears sticking straight out of the top of his head. And he came up to Darth and Joe, said, "Oh, it's a terrible mistake. I made this hole. I didn't mean for everybody to fall into it." "Who are you?" "My name is Marky Mark." "Marky Mark? What kind of a name is that? It's a double name." "That's right. And I was just doing an experiment with my new time machine, and I don't know why it would cause a hole to open up in the ground." And Darth, by this time, he was very familiar with time machines and and time travel. So he said that it must have opened up some sort of time-space vortex. Either that or some sort of disruption in the time-space continuum. But in any case, the hole is getting bigger, and they had to do something about it. And Joe said, "Well, who would know how to do something about that?" And that's when they heard a voice behind them that said, "Exactly! I would know how to do something about that." And Marky Mark said, "Who's that?" And Darth said, "That's right, that is who. That's the doctor." "Huh? No, who? Who? Doctor who?" His name's Marky Mark. He created this hole," said Darth. And next to the doctor was Sally. And the doctor said, "Sally, meet Marky Mark. He's the creator of this fine hole, except it seems to be growing larger at an ever-increasing pace. We have to do something about it, or pretty soon the entire planet will be swallowed up in a giant hole." At a time like this, and not only that, there was another problem. All the little animals that had fallen in, squirrels, rabbits, and animals that are particular only to planet Nordock, like ostrox, which are like, they're ostriches on top, but they have the feet of a hippopotamus, so they're very heavy. And they are a bird, but they can't fly because they're so heavy. And wormigans, which are long worms with a horse head at one end and sort of tiger feet at the other end. And when they start running too fast, their feet flip over their head and they get all tangled up. So it's very bad for them to fall down holes because they accidentally tie themselves up in knots. So the animals were actually panicking. They were very worried. They didn't know what was going on. And so it was lucky that at that point in time, there was a little ringing sound. Ring! Ring! "What's that?" And Joe said, "Oh, it must be the telephone I brought along with me," because Joe had brought a portable telephone. "Let's see who's on the other end."
Hello?
"Hello?" said Joe.
Hello?
"Hello, who's this?"
Why, this is the Galore.
Oh, the Googs! It's a good thing you called. We're having some sort of emergency here with all these animals.
You are? Well, the name of my game is Animals, so tell me, what could ever be the matter?
Well, there's this ever-growing large hole here on this planet's surface that we're not sure why, but all these animals keep coming and falling down into it, and they're very worried. They don't know how they're going to get back to the top.
Oh, no.
And if you could just calm them down and talk to them and tell them everything's going to be all right, because the doctor's here, Doctor Who, and he's going to fix everything, and we'll get them back up to the surface as soon as we stop this hole from growing.
Well, we need to create a lure. You know what a lure is?
No? What's a lure? Said Joe.
Well, a lure, when you're fishing, for example, you take a lure to trap the fish.
I don't know why anyone would want to trap fish, but it sounds good to me. What do I need?
Well, okay, so that's what we need to do. We need to lure the animals out, because I can't talk and know how.
Oh, lure them out of the hole?
First, we must lure them out of the hole.
Well, they can't get out of the hole because the walls are too steep.
No! Okay, then we must take, you know when you get out of the airplane
Uh-huh.
sometimes, and they have a slide
Yes?
that is, how you say blow it up big?
You inflate?
Inflatable?
Yeah.
Inflatable, and then we need two very brave adventurers.
Like Darth and Joe?
Yeah, they'd be perfect. They've already taken the pledge to help small animals and children, right?
Right?
Well, then they'd be perfect. They're gonna blow up the slide
Yeah?
and go down, and they're gonna tell all the animals that it's okay, and that the Googs will tell them when they get up to the top.
So the animals are going to crawl up the slide?
Yeah, they're gonna crawl backwards. First the snails, and they will create a mucus on, and people will stick, and it'll be fine. I mean the animals. Sometimes I call them people because they're so cute.
Okay. So Darth...
You notice some animals are people-like?
Yeah.
Like a dog has a paw, and a person has a hand.
That's right.
It's kind of the same.
Yeah. So Darth and Joe
Yeah.
need to find this slide.
They need to go, well, they're going to have to find an airline pilot agency with a plane that has emergency slide.
Okay. So Darth and Joe took their rings of transportation. They transported outside of the hole, and the Googs told the animals to all remain calm, and so they didn't.
Remain calm until Joe and Dot come back with the slide plan.
So Darth and Joe went to an airport and explained their predicament, their problem, to a pilot of a plane, and the pilot let them borrow a slide.
You know, it sounds like a very good plan, Joe and Darth, but are you sure you can fly the plane by yourselves?
No, we just need the slide. Do we need to fly the plane to the hole?
Well, it sounds to me like the Googs has got an awfully good plan, but maybe she's neglected to think about something.
And what's that?
You're going to need a pilot, and you're going to need that plane to hover
Oh.
over the hole while the slides get let down.
Oh, it's a slide has to come from the plane
Exactly.
down through the hole, the pilot
Hey,
explained.
what's going on? What's all this talk about the Googs not knowing?
Well, the pilot just explained to Darth and Joe that someone needs to fly the plane and hover over the top of the cave. Well, guess what?
What?
Darth and Joe have a friend named
Oh.
Trithy, and he's still putting on skis up at the ski lodge. So they're going to go up and get Trithy to fly the plane, because Trithy's training to be a Jedi warrior. He knows how to fly trains.
Cool. You know what? Everything is going to work out in the end, thanks to Joe and Dot and the pilot who volunteered to help too.
Yes. So you mean the pilot will fly the plane?
Sure, why not?
Well, then they don't need Trithy to fly it.
Well, no, but if he wants to, because the pilot actually has a very busy schedule.
Oh, and he has to fly other planes?
Yeah.
Okay, well, Trithy can fly the plane,
All right.
and Darth and Joe could lower the slide in, and so that's what they did. So they got the plane, they flew over. It was a hovercraft plane, and they hovered over the hole and put the slides down. And first the snails, and they left a mucus trail, right? So that it'd be.
Yeah, and it was magical. In the night, you could see it glowing from the moon's rays.
You could
All
see
nature working together to help.
to help the animals get up the slide.
Yeah,
So,
it's a beautiful thing.
but meanwhile, the hole was growing bigger and bigger. So they had to put up a warning sign to tell people to get animals to get far away from the hole. And the Googs, Joe asked if the Googs could come to the planet to warn animals to stay away from the hole until they stopped it from growing bigger.
Yeah?
Okay.
Yeah, I would love to help. Cause listen, you should have contacted the Googs earlier.
Well, we didn't know we'd have a problem with animals until now. But thanks. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. So the Googs came to the planet because the Googs can appear anywhere where there are animals in danger.
I am the Googs. Animals must stay away from the hole.
And the Googs warned the animals to stay away from the hole. Meanwhile, back in the hole, Marky Mark was showing the doctor and Sally his time machine. I know it's kind of a primitive time machine. You'll probably think so because you're a Time Lord and all, but here it is. And he took him into a room where Marky Mark was building a big time machine for going backwards in time. And the doctor said, well, it's very admirable that you want to build a time machine. Traveling time is a wonderful thing, and if you'd like to learn to become a Time Lord yourself, you're welcome to come to Time Lord training school. But to build a time machine and use it like this on your own is very dangerous. There are all sorts of things that can go wrong. For instance, you're using alpha waves to generate a vortex to disrupt the time-space continuum. And Marky Mark said, yes, that's exactly how I'm doing it. Isn't that the way? And the doctor said, well, uncontrolled alpha waves will disrupt the time vortex continuum in not easily predictable ways and might actually rip a hole in space, and that is what's happening here on this planet. There is a hole growing, and this hole, now that it's set into motion, will continue to grow until the entire planet is gone and everything on it. And Marky Mark said, well, I didn't mean for that to happen. What can we do? And the doctor said, well, luckily there's a Time Lord here. And Marky Mark said, who? And the doctor said, exactly. And I'm here to, first of all, turn off your time machine. Flick. He flicked the switch to turn off the time machine. That'll help things a little bit. And now we have to go back in time to before you invented the time machine and prevent you from starting it. But unfortunately, we can't go back in time anywhere near this hole because time travel is frozen here because of the time-space continuum rip that you've created. So we'll have to transport to another area in the TARDIS, and I want you to come with me, Marky Mark, so you can help convince yourself in the past not to invent this time machine. And you can come and join Time Lord training school if you wish and learn how to make a good time machine. That won't be any trouble for the rest of the universe. And so Marky Mark agreed to go with Darth and Joe and Sally and the doctor to the TARDIS, which was just waiting down the hall in the hole. And so they got into the TARDIS, and they flowed up and out of the hole, and meanwhile all the animals were being very calm and waiting. The animals had already been transported or had already crawled up the slide out of the hole because Darth and Joe, with the help of the Googs, got the animals to crawl out, and everybody was staying away as the hole was growing bigger and bigger. All the animals and people were walking away, but pretty soon the ski lodge was going to fall into the hole. It was a very dangerous situation. And so Trithy stayed behind to help keep people calm and to help keep people from falling into the hole. Of course, Trithy had 6 arms, so if anybody fell into the hole, he could easily grab them before they fell too far and pull them back out again. And so the doctor and Sally and Joe and Darth and Marky Mark were in the TARDIS, flying to a nearby moon of planet Nordock, which was a moon that revolved around the planet, and it was mostly an administrative moon. There were offices there, supply buildings, but there weren't a lot of people living there. But it was far enough away from the time machine that they could then go backwards in time. And they did. They went backwards in time 3 years, because that is when Marky Mark started to build his time machine 3 years ago. To the time when he started building his time machine and went to the planet, and of course there was no coal on the planet 3 years ago, and they got down on the planet, and Marky Mark knew exactly where to look to find himself. He was in his house, and he knocked on the door, and Marky Mark from 3 years ago opened up the door and said, "Hey, it's me, except a little older." And Marky Mark from 3 years in the future, when the whole problem started, said, "Yes, this is the doctor. He's a Time Lord." And Marky Mark said, "Time Lord? What a coincidence. I was just starting to work on a new idea for a time machine." And the doctor said, "Well, that's exactly why we've come. Your idea for a time machine has run into a very serious flaw, a snag, if you will, and we've got to prevent you from building it." And Marky Mark said, "But I want to build it. It's my life's ambition." And Marky Mark from the future said, "Don't worry, Marky Mark. The Time Lord's going to let us go to Time Lord training school, where we can really learn about time and space and how to manipulate them, instead of building our amateur time machine, which will just end up ripping a hole in the time-space vortex continuum thing and destroying the planet if we're not too careful." And so Marky Mark from the past agreed not to build his time machine. And just when they turned around, suddenly they saw that another spaceship had landed nearby. And Marky Mark from the past said, "Wow, I've never seen anything like that." And the doctor said, "That's because nothing like that has ever been invented. That spaceship is from 5,000 years in the future, and I recognize it." "What is it?" said Darth. "That's a spaceship of Redalore." "Redalore? Who's that?" "Redalore. He's an evil Time Lord. Well, he was training to be a Time Lord, and he dropped out of Time Lord training school, but he learned enough about time and space to make an awful lot of trouble. What's he doing here?" "I don't know, but it doesn't look good." And they walked up to the spaceship and knocked on the door, and there was no answer, and so the doctor used his universal key to open the door, and there was nobody inside. Said the doctor. And Sally said, also. And if Redalore isn't inside the spaceship, where is he? And Darth said, "How will we recognize him when we see him?" And the doctor said, "Well, he's sort of a bluish-green color, and he has tubes coming out of his head that go about 5 feet higher than his head and end in sort of flowers. And each one of those flowers is a sensor that he can sense his surroundings through, kind of like eyes, but they work on a different frequency in the electromagnetic spectrum." And so Darth and Joe said, "Okay, so he doesn't quite look like a regular person." "I get it." Okay, so they looked around, and they saw that there were footprints leading out of the spaceship, and they had to find it because Redalore must be up to no good, because he's that kind of guy, if you know what I mean. And so they looked around for Redalore, and they couldn't find him, and they decided, well, let's, I'll tell you what, Marky Mark, if you see wait, where's Marky Mark? I'm right here. No, I mean, where's Marky Mark from the past? And they looked around, and there was the Marky Mark from the future that had come with them, but the old Marky Mark, the 3 years ago one, who was just about to start work on the time machine until they got there just in the nick of time, so to speak, he wasn't anywhere to be seen. Where was he? And so they went back to the house, and they tried to open the door, but it was locked. And then Marky Mark said, "Hey, I still have a key from 3 years after this. I never changed my locks. I bet it'll work." And he tried to open the door, and the key worked, but there was something jamming the door shut. And Darth and Joe said, "Well," the doctor said, "This looks serious." And Sally said, "I can get in through a window." And she took her knife and she cut part of the window frame out and opened up the window and snuck inside. And then she opened the door from the inside of the house to let everybody in, and it had been jammed shut by pushing a whole piano against the front door to stop anybody coming in. And all the lights were out, and the doctor said, "Be very careful." And suddenly, Darth and Joe felt some sort of webbing, some kind of net, but not like spider web, more like rope web, and they were all covered, and it was a big net had dropped down on top of everybody. And Redalore said, "You're too late, Doctor and Sally. It's good to see you again, but you're not stop me now. I was looking for this." "Looking for what?" "Well, for this." And he pointed, and it was this it was the drawings for the time machine that Marky Mark had started to work on, and some scrap metal that he had started to put together. And Redalore said, "Why, with this time machine, it's perfect. It's perfect, I tell you. First of all, I can go back in time and collect all the gold and platinum and uranium and plutonium and lithium dilithium crystals that I want, and make millions of dollars selling them illegally. It's a great idea because I can just keep going back in time further and further and collecting all the riches." And the doctor said, "You know as well as I do, Redalore, perhaps not quite as well as I do, but almost as well as I do, that going back in time and doing such things will only disrupt history." And Redalore said, "Ha! You think I care about history? History has gotten me into a lot of trouble. I don't give anything about history. But I tell you what, I'm going to do this, and I know all about the whole. I know all about how this time machine will disrupt space and time, but that's better, because I don't like space, and I don't like time. And this way, people will have to pay me to keep me from destroying their planets. And if they don't pay me millions and billions of dollars, all I have to do is turn on a time machine on their planet, and it'll destroy the whole planet." He had kind of a strange laugh. And Marky Mark said, "Oh, I refuse to let my time machine be used by that." And Redalore said, "You have no choice." Because I've got the original Marky Mark right here. And Redalore was aiming a stolen lightsaber at Redalore. And he had him tied up, and he said, "Now, if any of you try anything, I'm going to chop Redalore right in half. I mean, no, I'm Redalore. I'm going to chop this guy. What did you say your name was? Marky Mark? Marky Mark. Right in half." "Well, then how will he help you invent the time machine?" said the doctor. "Good point. I guess I won't chop him in half. But we're getting out of here." And he grabbed the notes for the time machine that described how to build it. And he grabbed the old Marky Mark from that particular time period, and they went out the back door. But Sally, who had her knife, was meanwhile cutting away all the ropes and entanglement, all the netting that had caught all of them in a giant net that Redalore had sprung onto them, and she got them all free. And Darth started running out the back door, and the doctor said, "No, come out the front door. He's going to his spaceship." And sure enough, they saw him. He was running out toward his spaceship, and the doctor took his time lasso and whoosh, and went around both Marky Mark and the old Marky Mark and, well, the one from that particular time period, and Redalore, and froze them in time while they were running toward the ship. Well, Redalore was running. He was dragging Marky Mark. And so the doctor said, "Quick, okay, when I take off, I have to take off this magic, this time lasso so we can get Marky Mark out of here. But Redalore will react quickly, so I want you guys to be ready." And Darth and Joe said, "No problem." They took out their lightsabers. And so Doctor Who took off the time lasso, and Redalore pulled out his lightsaber. Marky Mark fell down to the ground, and the other Marky Mark helped him up again. And Redalore tried to fight off Darth and Joe, but it was no use because they were training to be Jedi warriors. And Joe knocked Redalore's little lightsaber out of his hand. It was a cheap model anyway. And they tied him up and brought him back into the TARDIS and put him into a special room with a force field on it so he couldn't walk out of that room. And the doctor said, "Well, you know something, Redalore will have to give up his spaceship because it's, first of all, he stole all the parts to make it, and second of all, because he was kidnapping, he's been committing time crimes all across the galaxy, and he's wanted by the Time Lord police. So I guess you guys could have it." And he looked at Darth and Joe, and they looked at each other. "Wow, really? Is it a good one?" And the doctor said, "Well, yeah, that's one thing about Redalore's spaceship. Watch." And he got the remote control out of the spaceship. This was a spaceship that could actually be flown with using just a small remote control. And he pressed some buttons, and they saw it spin and flew up and disappeared. And Darth said, "What? Did you send it into the past or the future?" And the doctor said, "Oh, it's right up there. I just put a cloaking device on it. It's invisible." "Invisible? Wow!" So, "And we can keep it?" "Sure. It's our way. It's of the Time Lord's way of thanking you for helping me to catch Redalore, one of the most notorious criminals in Time Lord history. And believe me, the Time Lords have a lot of history with a lot of notorious criminals. So that's saying something. And so Darth and Joe thanked him, and they put Redalore's spaceship into the TARDIS, which is a lot bigger on the inside than on the outside, so they could fly it back 3 years into the future where they came from. And when they got back there, there was no hole in the ground because Marky Mark had never invented his time machine because he had been warned not to. And Marky Mark went off with Doctor Who and Sally to Time Lord training school, and Darth and Joe and Trithy, instead of taking the shuttle back to their Jedi Knight training school, they took their new spaceship, which had the power of invisibility as well as an incredible deflector shield for protection from any sort of firepower that might be aimed at them. The end. Once upon a time, Billy the Goat was walking around looking for something to do. Now, Billy is not a very smart goat. In fact, Billy the Goat is a dumb goat. But he was walking around, and he came across the farmer's daughter who was having a picnic, and she was getting ready to clean up, and she was looking for all of the food that she left on her blanket on the field, and she said, "Oh, there's my cheese." Well, Billy the Goat thought that the farmer's daughter was talking about him, so he thought, "Oh, I must be Cheese. I'd better stop walking. Cheese doesn't walk." And he sat down, and he was very still. "I wonder what she's going to do with me," he thought. "Well, it's not my job to wonder. I am Cheese." And so Billy the Goat waited and waited. Meanwhile, the farmer's daughter cleaned up her picnic and went home, and it got later and later. And then that's when Billy heard "Hoomp, hoomp, hoomp," and the earth was shaking. "Hoomp, hoomp, hoomp." And Billy the Goat looked up, trying not to move very much because he knew that Cheese wasn't supposed to move around very much, and he saw a huge Galoomp. And then Billy the Goat thought, "Aha! The one thing I know is that Galoomps like to eat cheese." And he tried to get the Galoomps' attention. He didn't think that Cheese could talk, so he just sort of made little snorting noises. He thought that maybe if he was Swiss cheese, he could snort through the holes in his cheese body. And the Galoomp looked around, but he didn't see Billy. He walked closer and closer, and finally Billy couldn't take it anymore, and he yelled, "I'm Cheese!" And the Galoomp looked down.
"You're not Cheese?"
"Yes, I am."
"Then I should eat you," said the Galoomp.
And he reached down with his thumb and pointer finger, because he was very large, and he picked up Billy, who was only about the size of his thumbnail, maybe a little smaller, popped him in his mouth, and Billy thought, finally, eaten by a Galoomp. And Billy went down through the digestive system of the Galoomp and ended up stuck right above the Galoomp's belly. Now, there was a lot of acid in the Galoomp's belly, which was very dangerous for Billy, but his horns had stuck into the tube that led right down to the belly, so he was stuck right above the belly, watching all of the other food get digested and waving to it because he thought, well, I'm Cheese, they must be Cheese too. And meanwhile, his horns were irritating the Galoomp.
"What's that in my belly? It doesn't... I must have eaten stinky cheese," thought the Galoomp.
And he got very scared because he knew that Galoomps explode when they eat stinky cheese. And he decided, I'd better find some good place to explode. And he walked and walked and walked. And that's when he came across the farmer's daughter's house. And he said, "Excuse me." Knock, knock, knock. And unfortunately, he was so strong that he smashed in the roof of the building when he knocked on it. "Hey, who's smashing in the roof of my building?"
"It is I, a Galoomp."
"And I would like to explode here, if you don't mind." "No, go explode somewhere else," she said. "But I've eaten some stinky cheese, and I don't think I have much time." "You've eaten stinky cheese? Hey, by the way, when you were out there eating stinky cheese, did you see my goat, Billy?" No, I ate somebody who said he was Cheese, not Billy." "You ate cheese that said it was cheese?" asked the farmer's daughter. "Why, yes, I ate some cheese that had 2 horns on its head." "Ugh, that was probably my goat. That means my goat is Cheese," thought the farmer's daughter. "This is a very serious situation. Is Billy the cheese inside of you? That's Farmer Garter. Yes, he is, and he's making me explode. Okay, well, tell him to come home as soon as you explode him out. Sure thing. And the Galoomp walked over to a nearby mountain, and he sat down ready to explode. But the thing is that Billy the Goat wasn't really cheese, so he wasn't making the Galoomp explode. And it was getting dark, and Billy thought, I have to get digested quickly. I've got to get unstuck. And the Galoomp, meanwhile, was falling asleep. And he fell on his back, and he rolled down into a valley with his head lower than his feet. And that meant that when Billy finally pulled his horns out of the inner digestive trackings of the Galoomp, he went down thinking he was aiming for the stomach, but really he was aiming for the mouth, up through the trachea, and out the mouth came Billy, and thought, hey, he must not like cheese. Maybe I'm too stinky for him. And he spat me out so he wouldn't explode. I must be stinky cheese. What should I do? Wait, I can't move anywhere. I've got to stay right here, thought Billy. I'm a piece of cheese. And so Billy stayed there all night by the Galoomp, who slept. And in the morning he was woken up by hearing the farmer's daughter calling, Billy the cheese, Billy the cheese. Oh, there you are. And the Galoomp woke up too. Oh, what's going on? I didn't explode. It looks like you spat out my goat cheese. Oh, so I did. Well, you can have it back. And so she said, thank you, and she picked up Billy the Goat, who was very heavy for a piece of cheese, and she brought him back to her house, and she threw Billy the Goat into his big pile of rotten food, which he loves to eat, thinking that he was actually goat food in the form of stinky cheese. And Billy the Goat stayed out there, and she said, now I've got to find Billy the Goat. So she went out looking for Billy the Goat. Meanwhile, her friend Eddie came by. Eddie was a human who had 3 legs for no particular reason. And he was walking on his 3 legs, and he walked by and he said, hey, farmer's daughter. Oh, hi, Eddie. What's going on? What's that goat doing on his pile of food? Oh, that's stinky cheese. Your goat is made out of stinky cheese? Why, it's amazing. It's so lifelike. What do you mean? That looks just like a goat. You have the only cheese goat I've ever seen. And then she got a great idea. The farmer's daughter called the newspapers, and pretty soon there were reporters taking Billy the Goat's pictures. And the next day in the paper it said, Billy the cheese goat, first goat made entirely of stinky cheese. And Billy the Goat was famous, and he was quite proud. And as a cheese goat, he figured he could probably walk around, because he wasn't an ordinary piece of cheese. He was actually part cheese, part goat. And the farmer's daughter was sure to bring lots of stinky food over all the time for Billy to eat. So he lived happily ever after. The end. Okay, this is the theme song, Darth and Joe's Story, where we sing everybody's theme song as it comes along. This is a Darth and Joe story that takes place when Darth was 7 and Joe was 5. They were staying at Darth's mom's house on Darth's and Joe's home planet, and they decided to go out to get some ice cream. What they really wanted was some pecan chocolate with vanilla ice cream. They thought it would be good, maybe with a little bit of peanut butter and jelly on top. They weren't quite sure. So they went to their local ice cream store to get that. And whom did they see floating down the street on the way? Why, it was their old friend Casper the Friendly Ghost. And he had a theme song. It went, Casper the Friendly Ghost, the friendliest ghost you know. Bum 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 bum. Ba-dum bum 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 ba-da-da-dum. And Casper was walking along with his friend Spider-Man. His theme song's a little longer. It went like this. Spider-Man, Spider-Man, does whatever a spider can. Spins a web any size, catches thieves just like flies. Look out, here comes a Spider-Man. Is he strong? Listen, bub, he's got radioactive blood. Can he swing from a web? Take a look overhead. Oh yeah, here comes a Spider-Man. In the chill of the night, at the scene of a crime, like a streak of light, he arrives just in time. Spider-Man, Spider-Man, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Welcome then, he's ignored. Action is his reward to him. Life is a great big hang-up. Wherever there's a bang-up, you'll find the Spider-Man. So Spider-Man and Casper were walking along, and Darth and Joe said, "Hey, Spider-Man, Casper, what's up?" And they said, "Well, we were on our way to get some chocolate from the chocolate store." And Darth and Joe said, "Well, we were on our way to get ice cream from the ice cream store. Maybe we can get together afterwards and have some chocolate and ice cream and mix it all together." And just then, something flew overhead. And look out! And they ducked to the ground. It was some kind of really fast spaceship. And it's flying so low, it was knocking things off. It was smashing the windows out from buildings, flying way too low. Spaceships should not fly a few feet off the ground when there are people walking around. And so they looked at the spaceship as it was flying away, and Spider-Man saw on the back of it, there was a drawing. It was sort of a logo, and he recognized it as Dr. Mordoc's logo. What's he doing here? And Darth and Joe said, "There's no time to find out. You know what we're going to have to do? We're going to have to follow that." "What can follow a spaceship going that fast? I've never seen anything fly like it before," said Casper. And Darth said, "We'll have to call for a secret agent car." And he whistled. And turning around the corner was their friendly secret agent car, which had its own theme song, which went like this. Secret agent car, secret agent car. It can fly real fast, and it can fly real far. So they all hopped into the secret agent car. Well, when it took off, Casper, of course, flew through the back of it. See, Casper is a ghost, so when he doesn't stay inside of cars too well because he can just float right through the sides of them or through the ground or through the ceiling. So a lot of times, like, if a car runs into Casper, it just goes right through him. He hardly even notices. So the car took off, the secret agent car took off, and it kind of left Casper behind. But that's all right. Casper floated along after them. And the secret agent car met up with Dr. Mordoc's ship up high, and they used the radio, and Darth said, "Attention, Dr. Mordoc, we know you're in there. Come out with your hands up." And Dr. Mordoc said, "How can I come up with my hands up if I'm 500 feet in the air? You know I'd fall, I'd plummet to the ground, and bang my head." And Darth and Joe said, "Well, you have no choice. We're placing you under citizen's arrest." "What for?" said Dr. Mordoc. "For flying so close to the ground that you knocked out the windows of the ice cream shop and all those other stores down there. You can't fly like that." And then Dr. Mordoc said, "I'll tell you what, boys, we'll have a race. And whoever wins the race wins. I mean, if I win the race, then I'm going to fly down there and knock out all the windows in all the shops in all your cities. And if you win, then I'll fly back to my home planet and just work on some other diabolical plan to take over the world." And they agreed to it. So they decided to fly out to the desert and have a race to the mountain. Now, as you know, the desert is long and flat and covered with sand, and then there's this big mountain. And there's a hole in the mountain, which is kind of like a window, and you can see the sky through the hole. And their plan was whoever goes through that hole first to the other side of the mountain wins. But could the secret agent car fly as fast as Dr. Mordoc's car? It was hard to say, but Spider-Man had a plan. He could use compressed web pellets that he put into the engine of the secret agent car to give it extra strength, extra speed, because compressed web pellets, when they expand, they have super tremendous force, pushing the electrons and neutrons far apart at super tremendous speeds, blasting forward, and they would allow the car to fly extra fast. Neither of these cars had faster than light capability, so it was a pretty fair race, they figured. So they lined up, Dr. Mordoc on the left, secret agent car with Darth, Joe, and Spider-Man on the right. They revved their engines. By that time, Casper had caught up, and he was in between them, and Casper said, "Well, I'll tell you what, I'll say 1, 2, 3, and then..." By the time he didn't even get to finish his sentence, Dr. Mordoc already took off. He cheated! He's way ahead! Uh-oh, Darth and Joe had to catch up, and Spider-Man, and they took off. And they were faster, so they were catching up with Mordoc. It was close. It was very close indeed. Mordoc was a little bit ahead. Darth and Joe were pushing, going forward, go, go, go. Look out for the mountain, look out. And Darth and Joe just barely beat Mordoc through the hole in the mountain to the other side. And so when they all stopped, Darth and Joe said, "Well, Mordoc, you've got to go away to your planet now. But there's one thing we want you to do before you leave." And Mordok said, "Well, you've beaten me, boys. I guess I have to do what you tell me. What is it?" And Darth and Joe said, "Well, Spider-Man and Casper, our friends here, both have theme songs. So we were wondering if you could make up a theme song about us, Darth Vader and Joe Vader." And Mordok said, "All right, you'll let me go if I do that?" And they said, "Sure." So Mordok said, "Okay, this first song is about Darth Vader." Darth Vader pulls out his lightsaber, says to the bad guy, "See you later," then heads to his refrigerator, 'cause Darth Vader likes ice cream. Ice cream, yeah. That's pretty good. Darth liked that song. He started humming it to himself. In fact, he did like ice cream, so it's a pretty good song. But what about Joe? "Okay," said Mordok. "This song's about Joe, and then you let me go, right?" And they said, Yeah, sure. What's Joe's song?" "Darth Vader has a cousin. Joe Vader is his name. He has a lot of adventures. That's why he has such fame. Joe Vader says see you later, 'cause he likes ice cream too and chocolate too. Yeah." And so they let Dr. Mordok go back to his own planet, and that was the end of this side of the tape. But wait, there's one last thing on this side of the tape. I have a theme song too. It goes like this.
Well, cousin Eric, 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 cousin Eric. Sometimes it's cuz, or just because. It's cousin Eric, yeah.
Now you can turn over the tape, because now it's really the end of the tape. I promise. The end. That's pretty much it. Make sure you turn it over before the big beep. Too late.